As we've been saying, we're in this countdown to the upcoming bar exam. And if my hair looks a little grayer, which it is, and if I'm getting a little frazzled and my eyes look a little saggy, which they are, in part it's because I'm getting older, but it's also because we're just about 30 days away from the exam. And 30 days away, as I've been saying today, is a seminal point. It's a pretty important tipping point in the process. Those of you who are going to be going for the upcoming exam, you are in it right now. You're definitely here. Some of you are deciding right now whether or not to wait till the next exam, and that's fine. And for the most part, people who are making that decision make it at about this point. If you are watching and listening at this stage and you're getting ready for the upcoming test, I know you've got a lot to do, and I don't want to take up much more of your time today, but I do want to give you a sense of what you're capable of and what you're capable of doing in this period of time. It's been my experience that an awful lot of people tend to start looking for quick, easy solutions. And sometimes those quick, easy solutions are out there, but sometimes the easiest solution is to do the most straightforward next steps. Things like combining the reading and listening to a lecture, or not doing quite so many questions, not trying to write so many essay questions, but to focus on quality and not on quantity. The goal here is to work on your weaknesses. Those are all concepts that I think make common sense. And if you follow those and use your common sense, it will help you a great deal. Common sense tends to be in short supply in these last 30 days. Some people think that the way that they're going to pass the bar exam 30 days from now is that they're going to stuff an incredible amount of material into their brain, and then they're going to spit it all back out on test day. And in that vein, I wanted to share with you a classic Pixar movie that I enjoyed so much, and I thought it was perfectly appropriate. And the movie was called Wall-E. Remember, it was about the little robot? And I'm pretty sure most of you have heard of it, even if you didn't see it. But for those of you that weren't familiar, it was an animated movie about a robot. It was set way into the future. And this robot, Wall-E, an ugly robot. The purpose behind Wall-E was that he was out there on a planet accumulating garbage and waste, and he stuffs it inside his. And I assumed throughout this movie, though they never were explicit, that Wall-E was a boy robot, but he stuffs it into his little trash compactor, and then he spits it back out when he's all done. That kind of reminded me of bar takers. They take a lot of garbage, some of it clearly comes from me, and they chew it all up and they swallow it and they try and get it and they try and turn it into something that then looks presentable, that's packaged, and they spit it out. The problem is that if you think about good old Wall-E, is that I wouldn't really want to hold the stuff that he's spitting out of his trash compactor in my hands. And I'm pretty sure that the bar examiners don't feel a whole lot more excited about looking at some of the spit up that bar takers put in their answers. There's another character in the movie, Wall-E, called Eve. Remember Eve? And I won't attempt to say Eve the way any of them said it, but Eve, she was sleek, she was smooth, and she also had a tendency to blow things up if provoked. In any event, Eve focused on her task differently than Wall-E. Eve looks through all this rubbish that's on this planet, and she's looking for just one specific thing. And when she finds that one specific thing, then she's got a laser beam target to grab it and perform her mission. It seems to me that while the movie is called Wall-E, and it's really a love story between this ugly little guy robot and this pretty girl robot, I don't know what kind of robot children they'll have, but the reality is much like what I see a lot of bar takers do. I've got a lot of Wall-E bar takers. They're the ones who want to gobble everything up. They want to study everything. They want to do everything. They want to learn everything. They want to know everything. They want to accomplish and grab every morsel of information. And then having once gained it, they try to compact it. They try to put it in these little boxes. And like Wall-E, they have to go and put it on this conveyor belt that keeps all their treasures. And if you remember the movie, he's got Rubik's Cubes and things like that. So he's got this whole big long conveyor belt. And that's what I think a lot of bar takers' brains probably would look like. The problem, of course, is that it's difficult to access all of that stuff. And if your wiring goes bad or the electricity goes down or something just short circuits you, as happens in the movie and happens in life to a lot of people, you have difficulty getting at the information that you need. Now, I think that's what happens to some bar takers. They try to put so much material into their brain at the end, and then something short circuits it. Some activity, some event, some pressure, some outside circumstance, or maybe just the anxiety of the test itself. And they can't get all the information back onto that conveyor belt. In other words, there's just too much there. It's been packaged too tightly, They're wound up, it's all wound up, and it's just instead spit back out to the examiners. And that's been true in virtually every bar exam that I've taught. I meet these kinds of students and my heart goes out to them. They're working hard, they're working incredibly hard, but they actually have a lower percentage chance of success using that strategy. I would rather see a bar taker that's a little bit more like Eve. Why do you think you should be more like Eve? I like the idea that Eve searches through a lot of garbage and she's looking for just one thing. When Eve finds what she's looking for, she has a task and she's focused on that task. Eve does not get distracted by other things. She just blows them up, which kind of appeals to me. And maybe that's the way you're feeling right now. I'm just going to blow up everything that's not bar related. But beyond that, she isn't distracted by what's going on around her. She's totally focused. Now, in the case of the movie, Eve was looking, as I said, for vegetation. So bar takers, I think, your analog to vegetation is looking for the disputes, the conflicts, certainly when you're looking at an essay question. It's the principle of law that enables or guides a multiple choice question and the proper answer. It's the approach of a particular case or a statute as applied to the facts in a performance test. Those are the skills and the things that you should be looking for. They are what you're trying to create and highlight and add to your writing and put into your multiple choice work. To go back to our movie, Wall-E is not very discriminating. Wall-E just goes out, grabs everything, compacts it, takes it back, puts it in his little kit that he keeps with him if it's interesting to him. For example, Wall-E thinks hubcaps are really exciting. And while I think hubcaps could be exciting, in general, not so much. And that's really the problem. When you're trying to gather everything, to have all of the information about the law, every morsel or scrap of law, it's hard to be discerning. You end up putting everything into your brain or trying to. And so sometimes what you do is you pull out a hubcap on the bar exam when really what you needed was a principle of law or a particular rationale or a way to work through a resolution or a conflict or a dispute or a question. And all you've got is a hubcap. My point really is that you can take the metaphor of these two robots and the way that they function and apply them to the way that you're studying right now with 30 days to go. If you've got a discriminating eye as you study, you're looking for material that you don't yet know, the things that you need to work on, the weak areas. That's where you should put your emphasis and your focus. And when you find it, work solidly and persistently towards that goal. Or you can take the Wall-E approach of gathering everything, operating and acting as though you are literally just a machine and you just keep gathering and gathering. The interesting metamorphosis in the movie is that Wall-E turns out to have the greater, higher purpose of the two robots. And once he discovers his purpose, he stops being a hunter-gatherer and he starts to work to help Eve with what she's working on. And I think that as we see that character, we see a real development and we see something happen to him and he's much more valuable and much more useful. And that's a great analogy for what's going on here. As the character gets more focused, he gets more interesting, he gets more helpful, he gets more productive. And so what really has to happen in your studies in these last 30 days is that you have to get more focused, you have to get more productive. You cannot go around just gathering everything that comes across your sight, every stray twinkle or light, every bright, shiny object, everything that catches your eye is not going to be helpful at this stage. So what should you do? Pay attention to the work. Work on the things you don't know. Work specifically and productively. Narrow the list of what you're doing to the things that you need to work on each and every day. Don't try to make your studies bigger. Don't try to gather everything. Just keep working in a focused and structured way. I hope that helps. And if you haven't seen the movie Wall-E or you haven't seen it in a long time, it might be a good relaxing break from your studies. I really hope that you'll keep it in mind and think about that as we turn into this 30-day period. We've got a lot to say in the next 30 days about your studies, and we'll be back to do that shortly.